that everything will be alright. So don't let your head bow. Oh, don't let your head bow. Dreams about silver screen and TV light. They're in your head now. They're in your head now. And we're screaming out that everything will be alright. So don't let your head bow. Oh, don't let your head bow. Oh, don't let your head bow. Oh, don't let your head bow. Dreams about and we're screaming out. They're in your head now. They're in your head now. Dreams about. They're in your head now. They're in your head now.
G'day. Let's just do a quick check. Make sure everything's working. Make sure everything's working. Looks good. Make sure everything's working. Yep. Okay, cool. G'day and welcome. Today's stream, following up from last stream. Oh, okay, that audio is a bit loud. I'm just going to kind of turn it down a bit. Yeah, following up from last stream. Sorry, let's jump back here. So last stream, what we were trying to do essentially was to modify actions within ScriptRunner to get that to get those actions to essentially update automatically in the background. We needed that because we had a issue with being able within the desired state configuration, datum configuration file, as new items are added into the base configuration. So whether that's like you add a new like environment or anything, you kind of want that to dynamically populate. That has to be updated on the action within ScriptRunner, not in the script. Because essentially the idea there is that you would have an action in ScriptRunner. Within that action, you would have the parameters for the script that's being run, and those parameters would be updated so that that would reflect the changes to the datum configuration. So had to play around with that and kind of getting that working, which was quite interesting. So we were failed to get that to work. We couldn't access the database. It's password protected. And modifying the XML files is not an option. So while we can modify the XML files, they don't actually do anything on the server side. Excuse me, I've just woken up. So the next thing is to kind of look around at the web front end there. And I kind of had a bit of a play offline just to see what the challenges were around that. And it's quite interesting because some of the things that I found, was that, let's just jump on ScriptRunner 1. So if we jump on our ScriptRunner box, what we found in here was that the web calls that were being made under the admin were pretty stock standard in terms of there wasn't any sort of there wasn't really much that was like in terms of complexity, which I kind of was a little surprised at. So if we call ScriptRunner/admin, we can go and have a look in here, and you can kind of see the kinds of calls we're making. So the default call is it's calling the web service, but then what it's actually doing, no, we don't want to do updates. The other thing that it's actually doing is it's actually doing these subsequent lookups to do to a separate web service to get items from that. So that's basically how it's populating it. So kind of the web service feeds it the base template, and then what it's doing is it does subsequent lookups to essentially go and get the items or the objects that it needs. So that's what's happening under the hood here. And you can kind of see here we've got a filter, you know, and that's pretty straightforward. Now, you can see you have this response headers with the www authenticate. I know by hand that this is using Kerberos. The reason why I know that is because it says it is. If you can see up there, it says it's using Kerberos. So that actually offers us a solution to our problem, which is we want to be able to modify actions in ScriptRunner. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear this and we'll refresh this. We'll go back and forth. And you can see in here, this is the actions right here. It's essentially, actually no, this is the actions here, action control context item. And in here you can see there's the response, the REST response, and we can see some very interesting stuff, which doesn't really look like, maybe, I think I need to do a bit more digging. But the interesting thing is that this, we can make these calls because we could use Kerberos to authenticate. Now, if you just go ahead and copy this PowerShell, we'll just fire up the IC. And we can just dump this in here. Essentially, you can see it's trying to create a cookie. Get rid of this commands on the right side. We actually don't need any of that. Which is kind of surprising because now if we go ahead and run it, it's going to fail. It gives us a 401. That's because we're not authorized with Kerberos. So the way that we can authorize using invoke REST method is essentially use default credentials. And that's it. That's all you need to go and grab this to authenticate. So if we do the same thing, there's our response. So that means that we can actually do this action. So what I'm thinking of doing now is trying to figure out what action it is. So we've got like tests and things like that in there. So I want to kind of have a poke around in here and try and figure out what data's there and like what's the data that we need to get our solution to work. Now, what I mean by that is that this script, we're essentially going to have a script inside of ScriptRunner that is able to be invoked, that essentially allows you to modify the desired state configuration. That script will essentially be dynamically updated. The parameters will be dynamically updated so that when you run the script, you can get all the latest and greatest, you can see the entire filter. You can essentially see the stack. So you could introduce new items within the configuration and it will be able to add them as parameters into the script. And that means that once you can select all the parameters and then select the values, which we can go and extrapolate the values based out of the file configuration, then from that we can actually use queries to do that too. So we're not necessarily like essentially we can hard code this entire process for a help desk person. Once we've done that, essentially what we can do is that script will essentially allow you that person to populate and add a new node and then insert that node in the correct file structure based on the datum configuration schema. And that's pretty much how it's going to work. So once that's done, then essentially most of the backend stuff in terms of pushing it to a DSC pull server, all that kind of stuff's already done. It's just going to be a means to be able to actually implement this. The other thing is that there'll be the addition, like obviously be able to add custom DSC resources and things like that into the configuration. Still not sure about how to do that yet, but the idea is that we just had them as separate scripts. Yeah. But this at least is a good start, and it's something that I think we can definitely do. And it will make them, like, it essentially will make DSC available to the regular person without having to give them all the complexities of understanding data and giving them the keys to the kingdom in that circumstance. So let's have a poke around, find out what we need to find out, and then we can write some code to do it. Once we've done that, we know that that's kind of that entity bit is working. Then what we can do is step back and then start to write the datum schema configuration. As long as I can kind of know that I can update a parameter in a script, and then I can basically edit that script, reflect the change in the parameter, I call that a success. I can see that reflection and being updated. That's a success, which means then we can update our actions. And that means we are on way to this. We're on way to be able to implement a solution here. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is firstly just going to have a poke around in here because I don't know where the structure is. I'm suspecting. You can see here it's also invoking web requests. So what I'm going to do is flip that. We can just flip it over so we can do automatic serialization. I don't think we need this. I'm actually just going to get rid of it, see what happens. Can we just get away with no headers? Like, will it allow us? It looks like it. So this makes it a lot easier to deal with. So we've got title information. Is there like, what's in here? There it is. We just came across it. Look at that. rt.scriptname. All right, let's have a look at this. Okay. So we can search for stuff now. I have a feeling, I wonder if we can actually do a straight up search, because if the problem that you're going to have is that it's looking for a specific thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a test and see, let me try that again, except did that actually do anything? No, see the search capability in here is limited to the items that are populated in here. Global filters, tags. Do these modify? Nope. There's no change. There's no subsequent lookup. Okay, so that's not going. I think the only way that we're going to be able to. Oh, maybe if can we refresh? What does that do? Tag item, role assignment, claim type, claim type. Okay, I think I have no idea. It's changing. Don't know. That's all right. We can stick to the original, and what we can just do is carry on. Okay, so we can essentially function. So what we're going to do is just going to run a really basic function here. Get SR actions like so. And what we're going to do is just add a parameter in here. Like I said, I'm just going to go. And what essentially we're going to do. I'm just going to kind of. This is going to change. I'm just kind of whipping this up so that we can at least auth, which will be a good start anyway. We can actually get, like, we just need to do the basics for the moment, and then we can focus on the advanced stuff. What's my, oh, my cat's now decided that she is walking past my window. I think she wants to come inside. One sec. Yeah, I think she wants to come inside. All right, I'll have to go and get her in. So what we're going to do is we can just run this. We don't, obviously this, it's not plugged in yet. And that doesn't work. Why does that work? Oh, it's because I'm not returning anything. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to take a copy of all this info, and then we can basically take it into XML or JSON, whatever we need to, and then bring it into the main Visual VS Code instance on my parent. Just give me one sec. I'm just going to go get my cat in. Okay, alrighty. So, all right. So the next thing that we need to do is kind of filter this. So what I'm going to do is there's method to my madness here. Actually, no, I'm going to use the invoke rest method. So I can go get it now. What I'm going to do is I'm just serializing this to a JSON file, and then I can bring it into my main VS Code instance. So there it is there. Let's just go ahead, just bring this in here. I'm just going to go. Spell, that would be nice. We can go ahead and get rid of the database. Get rid of that, we don't need it. Okay, so what we've got now is a mock in there. Get rid of that, get rid of that, don't need that. So I'm just going to underscore that because we might need it in the future for whatever reason. Don't throw that out. So it's actually shouldn't be, it should be list SR actions. And so what we can do is I can kind of just write my code without having to do much by just essentially, whoops, what's going on? Why is it hung? Goodness gracious. If you go JSON, you can see it there, which is good, and then we can just go JSON, and then we can basically ingest that. We can ingest that content in there, so that makes it a lot easier now. We can essentially poke around in here and kind of sorry, one sec. I am getting rid of that AZ every time I click it, and then it just adds a whole bunch of files, which I don't need because we're not using AZU right. We're just not using it. It's just not needed. All right. Is this going to break anything? Nope. Let's go ahead and reload. All right, so it's now gone and I'm not going to get harassed. All right, let's carry on. So I just need to reload that code, but because we're we should have memory, it should be okay as long as that. There we go. JSON. Yep, cool. All right, so it should be convert from JSON. Yep, perfect. All right, so what we need to do is just go and have a look at the value. I'm just going to bring this back so I have a bit more real estate on my screen. So the idea here is that we need to go and grab the script. So what we're looking for is that RT script name. So what we can say is I think I need to format the script name. Do we go like actual file name? Do we go an interesting question now. Do we go script file name? Do we go script tag name? Do we automatically resolve it? How do we want to do this? I think for the time being, I'm just going to give it a file. I'm just going to give it a name, and then we're going to search based off name. Just because right now, I just kind of want to stand something up in a really, really basic instance. And then if we really want to polish it, we can polish it later. So what we can do here is, sorry, excuse me. So what we can do here then is we can just basically go where object. And we can just go RT name is equal to it's like yeah, I think that's what we'll do. We'll just do something like that. Makes it nice and easy. And then we'll just wrap that in the parentheses. So what we can do here we can mock the output by just basically going script name is equal to test.ps1, and then what we can do is we can basically go SR actions equal to JSON. So essentially we've now kind of connected those items together, and then what we can do essentially is just to test it, is to do that, which didn't work, but we just need to test to make sure that. And the reason why it's not working is because what we're actually getting from the output is the OData context as well. So what we need to do here is go to value. And let's try it again. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's a good start. All right, let's keep cracking on. Let's go and have a look at updating something. So what we need to do is go ahead and clear this. And we're going to double click on tests. Let's just try that again. This time I'm actually going to click edit. And then you can see here, this is where we assign parameter values. And so what we're going to do is just click OK. And that will give us update assignments. Change action. OData type. Okay, let's go and have a look at this kind of. Let's go and have a look at this. Can we format this? I love how it's just always half formatted. It's like, yeah, we formatted some of it, but that's it. It makes it really hard to. There you go, it's a post there. So it's specifying the action context item, which, do we have that info in here? Whoops, do we have that info in here, action context item? We should be looking for a 19. There it is there. So what we can do now is link those two items together using the ID. So what we can say is, this is where it's going to get really funky. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly stretch. I haven't really eaten anything this morning. I'm just kind of woken up and just jumped on stream. So I think what we're going to do here is because the thing that I'm thinking about is this entire structure. Is this structure static? Is it linear? Like, how is this, structure being updated? Like, you can see the request headers, the payload, the highs, the input references, the script parameters, and script parameters reference. It seems like 93 and 94. What are they? I'm just gonna stop recording for the moment. What's 93 and 94 under parameters? I bet you that they correspond to these. Okay. Where did they get those ScriptRunner parameters from, though? That's the interesting thing. We've got ID, arg values. What values were they? They were 93, 94. Okay, here they are. RT ID list param IDs. Okay. That's interesting. But that doesn't give you a whole bunch of information. I'm guessing it does a subsequent lookup to get all the items from that. Because you can see here there's no argument. Okay, so it does a subsequent lookup to get the argument values, the argument items, the parameters. So this is kind of only giving us half the story now. So what that means is that we need to keep looking. So this is the request URL for that. What's the response? Can we like format it in a way that's not really frustrating? Hang on, let me just check the Google Chrome Dev Tools format based on. Based on DevTools data format. I'm tracing this. There's usually like a format up here. I just find it's really strange that I don't see anything here. Add a new tab, can I? Well, we're just gonna actually. Okay, so here we go. So this is not giving us the information we want. This is just still that top level lookup. So what that means, where is that info going? Like, how are you getting that, updating the arguments and that kind of information? Like, there needs to be some sort of lookup that's being performed on that for that to happen. New soap that's in our bathrooms making my skin itch. Yeah, that's just role assignment claims. What's this? What's this? Get action values. Well, the sun's just come up in full force. Get all action. But that's a post. So it's a post. What's it sending? Request payload is nothing. Okay, here's the data here. Okay. This is how we format it. Okay, dope. All right, so these are the parameter values. So they're done through a post. It seems you can see here. Okay, so that means that what I'm thinking, I'm gonna just bundle all this up for the time being. So that we can kind of get everything. We can probably run these at the same, like this is, if you were using async, you could do these calls at the same time. For this sake, we're just going to keep them just standard. Then we can just go param, get params, get and what we can do here is we say that, oops, and then we can go ahead and grab that. Oh, no, it's a subsequent lookup because we need to get the ID. Yeah, we need to get the ID first, and then we can do a subsequent lookup. That's all right. So then what we need to do is just format that. Let me just go and grab some code. Can't believe I'm writing the IC here, but I kind of just need to. Oh, I could actually probably draft this up in VS Code. Do I have VS Code installed? Yes, I do. I think we'll just get it in here, and then I can focus on getting it working, just so I can get some sort of win here. That is pretty much the same. That goes there, so that gives us our actions. We're not going to be writing output, but what we are going to be doing do that, and then we can basically do our subsequent lookup. What we can do is just leave it up the top here, like so, and then, oh no, we can actually, we can do that. So what we can do is do that, and then we can go method post, and then from here, what we can do is we can basically say I'm just going to create a property. I'm going to call it ScriptRunner action, and then I'm just going to make a PS custom object. Actually, no, I'm going to create a dictionary hash, just a hash table. It's fine. The reason why is because I want to put it all in one nice neat thing. So what we can do is do that. And then we can basically do that. And then what we can do here is say, okay, invoke rest method. Yeah, we're going to have to move this down. I don't really want to have to write a crazy amount of code. Then what we can do is say, so we have to call this action, and then we have to basically pass action there. And then we have to go action.id there. Not the best way. I think I can refactor this to make it a little neater, but for the time being, I think that will work. So if we run that, get rid of that. Don't need that. In terms of request headers, I don't really see anything there that's you know, anything, and there's nothing in the payload, so I would expect yeah, that's going to be the output. So then what we can just basically say here is value, like so. We can go ahead and run that. Then we can go get SR actions, and then we can basically go script name, press.ps1, and there we go. So we're basically slowly starting to get that info out. That is definitely not the actions. 100% is not our actions. What's that? That's a dot action. Oh, whoops. So SR get, and we need to pop that there. Like so, because we essentially invoked it twice. Let's go ahead and rerun it and let's see what happens. There we go. Let's have a look at our arguments. There we go. So we got our arguments. Which gives us our ID, so we can start to kind of link everything together. What I'm thinking for, like, so essentially to kind of give the query the ability, the best way to work. So what I'm thinking is that, like, obviously these need to be, these will be queries. So essentially you could just say query, you know, list of OUs, that kind of thing. And then the idea is that is a instance where it, I'm just thinking, like, so essentially that query script will remain the same across every parameter. It's just the way that the parameter will be called. So if we go, you know, blah blah blah, and then it will give us a parameter, we can just say the parameter is blah, giving it a select a script parameter to use as dynamic input. We can probably do something like that. I just want to see if there's a list of OUs or something. List local disk, print servers, VMs, host. like the idea is that then you can just set the parameter and then it's good to go. So that's my idea there anyway. We'll see if it works or not. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. Not really much else to. We can. What I want to do now is change it so that what we can do is. So we essentially want to mock a change. Also, mock a change. We want to be able to make a change to this. But firstly, what I'm wanting to see is what happens when we pull. When we set when we set a different parameter. So I'm just going to set a query here. What does it look like, and how am I going to put that piece of code into it? How is it linked together? That kind of item. So I've just made that change. What I'm going to do is clear this, turn it back on again, edit. You can see here now it's changed. So what we're going to do is stop it. We're going to call this again and figure out what it's doing. So now if we go arguments, what's in here? So we've got list of local disk, query name. So we can see, okay, so the type has changed. You can see there's a param value and that's a query reference. And then it is referencing a query. So this is the other thing is that these are specific types that it's parsing. So I'm wondering, are we better off to use classes to create the body of the request, or are we going to manually do it? In the long term, I think a class would actually make sense in this circumstance. It's one of these things where, from a design point of view, I'm not a fan of going down the class path, but the benefit of doing that means that we can create, or we can reference, essentially it's going to be, the thing is that we're going to need to be able to pass the input back to this, pass what we want into the server to make the change. I think that's the only thing that really matters here. I don't think actually, is there any benefit that we're going to get from using a class? And just thinking about it, I'm like, if you let's say we could make a typecast, you could typecast it as that class. You have all the goodies within that. Is it going to give me? What's it going to give me? Could we? The only thing I can think of is in terms of benefit is that you could dynamically typecast. You could essentially take the type, pass it into the class, and essentially the class would then go, okay, this is its object type. We need to go and fetch this data from, from the query, and go and get the query task information, so that so that we have the complete picture. So you can automatically load that, but you can do that within a PowerShell command. You don't need to necessarily, or function, you don't necessarily need to have a specific class to do that. Yeah. I think in this instance, the better way to do this would be to, sorry, I'm just getting comfortable. The better way to do this would be to yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I think for the time being, we're just going to kind of just plow through it, and then we'll focus a bit on that later. But if we need to have a query reference, so I think the way that I'm going to kind of do it for the time being, gosh, it makes me just shut up thinking of it. The my script parameters. These are the parameter. Yeah, so that's the information. Is that the post? That's a get. Metadata script parameter. Weird. RAM proxy. Okay, this is the. Is this going to give me any more info? I don't think it is. No, it's not. I'm not going to use it. So we've got action context 19, which is the script name, script reference. What I'm looking for is this, my action ID, yeah, my param proxy ID, my script parameter ID, which is 94. Does that seem right? And so what I'm looking for is list of local disk. List of local disk. They're like a. It'd be nice if it actually just had the URL in here and you can just kind of hop rather than go and look for it. That would like that's one of the things I do like about NuGet v3 is it just encodes the URL and everything, so you can just kind of hop. Whoops. Oh, I just dropped it. Just dropped my wedding ring. So yeah, definitely have a habit of doing that. So I think. I have no idea what that is. I think maybe for the time being, that's enough. Like, I'll probably am going to have to come back to this. But I think for the time being, at least this gets me over the line in terms of being able to get actions. To actually get SR action, it's probably not going to be. Let's just go get SR action and then go test.ps1, and we basically get a whole bunch of info. I think that's a good start. So the next thing that we kind of need to do, which is a bit of a challenge, and we don't need ScriptRunner for this, so I'm just going to go there, get that. Is we need to be able to kind of figure out how are we going to read the schema. So we jump in here, not in here, source. You have a look at the datum.yaml file here. So you can see here, this is the resolution precedence. This would be used into describing because what we kind of need here is that, like, we need to be able to look at, for instance, this node here. So we've got this node, computer settings. So this is top level info here. This is computer settings. I believe that's a specific resource. Yes, they're resources. So we need to look at the top level content. So the idea is that we need to be able to enumerate that. So we take that list. So that gives us it doesn't have a node name. What is its node.name? Oh, that's going to be the file name. Okay, so node.role description. Yep, node.name. Where's name? So that'll be the name of the file. Environment file directory base name. Now it's just got super sunny again. Gosh, man, that sun is getting lower and lower in the sky. I have to keep pushing down. My window's about halfway down now because my blind's halfway down because the sun's so low. Anyway, so I think this is an interesting one because you got file. Essentially you got file.directory.name. How am I going to be able to define this configuration? I'm just trying to think, how would I do this automatically? Like essentially develop a schema. Not so it's necessarily a schema, but essentially now I think the way that this is the way I'm thinking I would probably do it. Is to create a template so we can create a template file which would essentially have the top level node information stored in there, and that would be then classed as the node baseline. Within that template file, then we have a script which essentially loads we could have a PowerShell script that loads the directory structure. So that's essentially the directory and file structure. Just thinking now. G'day, Haiku. How's it going, mate? Getting ready on holiday. I know that sounds amazing. So I'm thinking, so you've got the datum configuration. This is your resolution precedence. this is the thing that's essentially what we need to be able to manage this. I'm just trying to think how we're going to do this, because the idea is that we have all nodes. You can see they've got node.environment, node.node name. So node.environment, node. Just came back from dinner. Ooh, what'd you have? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Yeah. I'll get hungry. So they got baseline slash security. Okay. So it seems there's two things that need to be done here. The first thing is that we need to be able to grab the files. Um, Essentially, we need to be able to enumerate the file structure of Datum. It's like, you got node.baseline, baseline's DSC LCM. Okay, what I think we can do here, um, is so we parse this. This essentially will provide our baseline for what we're wanting to do, and then once we can get that into memory, that essentially sets the okay, that's yeah, that means then we can do our lookups for what we need. So then anything that basically has essentially a script variable inside of some sort of sub-expression as per se, that gets parsed that gets like so okay, I think I figured it out. So what it can be done here is that we can read the resolution precedence, and then we read the template. That means that I'm just trying to think it from a user perspective. So if the user's basically going to add a new node, essentially this is the structure that's going to follow. But it doesn't need to have the full structure, because we can define things without the user needing to put input, because these are already hard coded. So anything that's not a PowerShell sub-expression doesn't need to be presented as a parameter to ScriptRunner. So then the next thing is that we would need to take this baseline. Oh gosh, the sun's just come out and my exposure's gone right through the floor. Let me see if I can tweak this a bit. Sun's coming in and out like crazy. Let's see if I can actually tweak this. Let's just turn on the exposure. Gosh, it's bright. I'll just leave the exposure like that, and then it just will manage it, hopefully. If the sun gets a little darker, hopefully it's not too bad. So I think that, like, so the problem is that, actually no, because then if we have the template and we essentially use the template as a means to be able to build our configuration out, that the user only needs to have that. These are like, all this other stuff, that's all just get datum source file, DSC tagging layers. This is all just extra. Oh my gosh, the exposure's gone through the floor. Gosh. Okay, this is not good. Let me just shut this blind because the sun is absolutely jumping in and out of blinds at the moment. I'm jumping in and out of clouds at the moment. Alright, do that, make it somewhat darker. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to kind of keep the exposure set. So I'm thinking if we go down this path, like this can all be added to the template. But then the idea is that then when we want to make something new, we can essentially, yeah, we could, technically it's an overexposure. Thank you. I have no idea what anything to do with cameras. I'm just like, as long as, like, I got my 1080p Microsoft webcam, like, yeah, I leave all that kind of fancy stuff to my wife, and I just kind of, like, now the sun's back out and it's my other window. A photographer, nice. Hang on, give me 1 sec. I really don't like, okay, let me be honest. I don't want to have to do this. I love just having a stream, having the, you know, the sun there. Like, it's quite a beautiful view. But when you've got a non-constant source of light that's basically bouncing in and out, it just sucks. All right, anyway, that all aside. So the idea here is that we could, you could add this into it, and that would actually make no issue. Like, I'm just actually, no, would it create issues when we parse it? Because the idea is that when we create a new node, you want to be able to include, like, do you have the template file? Because the problem is that, like, right now I don't know how to separate the, like, right now I can see that these are DSC resources. So, like, for instance, network IP configuration, computer settings, they're DSC resources. How can we segment that away from these top level resources which aren't? And I think what I'm going to do is within the custom template file. Okay, so what I'm going to quickly do is we're going to create a template file. Let's just kind of scratch this together. I'm just going to create this template. So within the template file, so you can essentially we could say node settings, and then we can say, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Configuration, and then from that, we can, that would then be able to segment it, because the idea is that you could take this YAML file and then essentially this YAML file, stick them together once you've configured this. Now, the interesting thing here is you can see you got location, Singapore, baseline server. This is interesting because these are the lookup items that we need to do. So So it needs to kind of somewhat be able to resolve the baseline. So essentially, what we need to be able to do is go, all right, there's this property called baseline, which then if we have a look in, and it says the value server. So if we have a look in is it baselines or baseline? It's baseline. Hang on. Okay, no, that's see now essentially because we've got baselines, no baseline. Essentially, what we would have to do is go, okay, this value so the values that need to be inputted. So we've got like baseline server, for instance. The way that you would have to structure it is that it would then do a subsequent lookup back to the resolution precedence and then go and associate that specific variable, which is baseline, and then go and find that path. Once it's found that path, return the 3 file names to be able to actually, so that they will then become parameters. I think that's probably going to be the way that we need to do it. Because the concept here is that like you want to be able to present to the user a means of be able to configure it. Now, it's quite interesting though, because you can see he's got baselines, DSC, LCM, DSC, / security. That's very interesting because the problem is that they would then show up. So essentially, you could have a duplicate in your configuration, which is not good. Not from a help desk perspective, it doesn't make it functional. So the way that we'd have to get around that, essentially, like I don't know if it'd be best practice within it, is to create is to create a server baseline, is to create a separate, essentially a segmented directory within that where you would store those baselines in there, so that you're not like, essentially you can still maintain some, like you can still have that ability to kind of have some files in the same thing. It just means that files won't, like, yeah. I don't think it's, that I think that will work, because at the end of the day though, if we have a segmented directory, so if we say like baselines infrastructure, like for instance like that, and then essentially what we could do is go new folder infrastructure, because essentially that's the subdirectory that we're looking at. And then basically we could dump server into that, like there, and then we could create a new file and call it desktop.yaml, like so, and that would then become a desktop instance. Like you don't use DSC for desktop, but it's just kind of, that's my thought there, so that then when you kind of get to the resolution precedence, you can match them up. Okay, this is starting to make sense now, I think. Okay, so there's a few things that we need to do here. The first thing that we're going to need to do is we need to be able to read the YAML file. So make sure I've got the right modules installed. Do I have install module after PowerShell gallery? one I need. Okay, so all we can do here, just install module. And I think the first thing that we need to do here is to be able to resolve, like, I think Gail's got the code somewhere, but I'm just going to kind of use my own, is to be able to essentially resolve the resolution precedence. Yeah, that's fine. To resolve the resolution precedence. And then from that, we can kind of go from there. I think that's probably the way that we're going to do it. So I think first things first is let's actually, how do we just quickly have a look at this syntax? Convert to YAML, convert from YAML. Okay, cool. All right, so what we would need to do, so let's just go and have a look at the configuration. Just going to copy and paste. Be fine. So if we have a look at the Datum configuration, you can see here got lookup options. So then we can go to resolution precedence. Okay, cool. So there's our resolution precedence. And what we can then do is, I'm just going to kind of scratch pad this out so that I can kind of come back to it. I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to say datum resolve datum info.ps1, like something along those lines. Just kind of, we can kind of scratch pad this out. So we can chuck datum configuration in there. So that's done. So the next thing that we need to be able to do is get the folder structure. Yes. Something along these lines. I haven't even thought about what it's going to be yet. Folder structure. What we can do is filter it by YAML. Just make sure this is the one. It's always one of those things. Yep. Okay, cool. So we can filter by YAML and exclude the top level. Well, that's not working for some reason. Where objects? Extension is equal to double. We have a look at folder structure now. Let's see what the top level is. Okay, so we can see now the top level's datum. We don't want the top level directory. Okay, what we can do here is we can change this just to do a subsequent query. We can basically say get child item, and then we can go to literal path source, and then we can go directory. It's a directory. Yep, so that gives us our template won't be in the source. It needs to be up in here. This is now would be considered pristine. So yeah, we got that, and then we can do our subsequent lookup. Where we basically say it's not the best, but it'll work, where essentially we can just say get child item, recurse, file, and this will get me all the YAML content. So if we rerun that, that should exclude the top level structure or the top level directory. Yeah, cool. So we can now see all that info. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do is, so we've got the Datum configuration, we've got the top level configuration, we've got the folder structure now, with all the configuration elements within it. We need to load the template. Get constants. Copy path. And then what we can say here is convert from YAML. So that now gives us my template. Supposed to give me my template. Is there anything in there? Yes. Why is it not loading? Is it, did I, oh, don't tell me I've done it wrong. No, please don't do anything to that. Node settings.yaml, convert from YAML. That should have done something. Should have passed it. That VS Code's locked up. It hasn't done anything. Node settings. Oh, what? That's why. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, cool. All right, so we have our content there. Okay, so these are the items that are prompted to the user. So this is that what we want. Now the thing is, I'm just going to go to the next song. I wonder if there's a thing we can turn off explicit. Playback, window. Like, that would be nice. I want to see if we can just disable explicit. Settings. Software rendering mode, audio plugin, OBS. I would have expected. Doesn't look like it. Huh. Report a bug. Yeah, there's nothing there. Okay. Great. That's all right. I just have to keep an eye on it. So now we've loaded the template file. Excuse me. What we need to do is we need to be able to resolve this. So anything that basically has So first things first, in the template file, we can filter out any PowerShell, any sub-expressions. So what we can do here is go template file. Is that? Is that an array? Nope. Okay, we have to go keys. So what we're going to do is filter out any sub-expressions. So to do that, base, we're going to call this filtered. Like so, I'm still really just, all I'm trying to do here is scratch pad this together, and then what we can say is where that template file that actually just want to make sure that that works. So I'm just going to quickly go /roll. Yep. Okay, so we can go that matches. We can just say I'm just going to do a really simple equals here, but this needs to be cleaned up with regex. We need a literal string because we're working with square brackets. Equals, I'm just going to say like star, like so. So essentially, if it has a opening and closing bracket, then that's okay. Just going to kind of clean this up a bit so I can keep track of everything in my mind. So we then just need to go like that, and then equals that. And so that will basically filter it all out. So let's try and run that, make sure that works. That did not work, catastrophically did not work. The specified wildcard pattern is invalid. Yeah, this is one of the things about with like is that we need to do some escape sequencing. I'm just trying to think what's going to be. I think it's going to be just that. Try it again. Yep, let's see if that works. Okay, cool. So that's filtered out all the items. All the keys that are that we need to work with. So just rerun that. So that now gives us the info that we need to be able to now just focus on the description, the environment, and the node. So now then what we need to do is get the values for that. And so what we can do, we could say get values for keys, or get pre-filled values. That's probably like so. And then what we can do here is we can basically say, okay, I could kind of feel the code coming together now, which is good. We can then go and get to be able to resolve it. So again, the concept here is to be able to. So this is an interesting thing is that what you could actually do is we could just basically just create when this the schema runs. Like the schema can run whenever it wants to run, or it can be run every 15 minutes. And then all it does is it updates essentially a configuration file which contains all this. And so then basically when the parameter script, when it goes to update the parameter values, it can just automatically do it. Oh, excuse me. That's what I'm thinking. So what we might need to do here is, so we get a preview of values to keys. And then from that, I'm thinking, just thinking out loud at the moment. I think what we need to do then is, because we have the description, the environment, and the node name, now we need to go and associate that within our resolution precedence. So you can see here, we've got multiple variables that we essentially need to do lookups on. Or do we need to? No, because they're static values, but they correspond to directory paths. So we don't need to do a lookup in the resolution precedence. We need to do a lookup inside of the file structure. But we don't know where to look unless we go to the resolution precedence and figure it out. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. So what we need to do here is within each of the keys, we can basically say we need to get each of the key. So we have the key name here. So this is the key name. We need to go and find that associated key name in the resolution precedence to find the path. So anywhere where that key name is mentioned, we are going to say that that's the path. It's probably not the best way to do it, but because it's top level, we're essentially just looking at node name. So what we could say here is, we could say keys path. We'll just call it directory path. Oh no, file paths. Because the resolution precedence is only associated to a file, which means we can basically say file paths, and then we can say datum configuration, resolution precedence, and then we can go where, and this is where it gets funky. We can then say within the resolution precedence, do we look for the string or do we actually parse it? That's the next thing. Do I essentially run because you got node environment, node location, node role. This, if we go back to template file, keep in mind we still got description, environment, node name. So those would have to be parsed. So like environment, if you've got node name, you'd have to parse environment to get the whole thing to work. What we could do just thinking about this. For each of those keys, we could set a predefined value that's unique, and then basically parse it. You can parse it, and then go from there. Hang on a minute. Maybe it's just texted me. What's going on? I have no idea what those are. I have no idea what they are. Business card holders. No, yeah. Actually, maybe Amy might have one. Hang on. Give me a sec. I'm just going to quickly respond to my neighbor first. He's got something urgent. Give me 2 secs. I'll be back. Oh, not that one. Is it? Yeah, it must be. All right. I'll be back in 2 secs. Oops. There we go. I'm back. Okay, cool. All right, so I think... Okay, I think what we're going to need to do here is I'm just going to do a lookup for the node. So you can see here, this node, like if we're looking for node name, for instance, but the problem is that it sits inside of node environment. So how do you look that up? So it has to be under all nodes, and then the following directories. So it kind of need to write this query where we identify what we're wanting to get. So for instance, the node name, but we know that it's nested down the bottom of a directory stack. So what we have to do is go and get the environment. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think I'm going to definitely have to have a think about this in a little bit more detail. So I'm thinking if we've got the infrastructure baseline, that's straightforward. Like it's essentially a static file directory path, a file path. This is fine. That's fine. That's not, because of obviously there's a parent directory that doesn't needs a variable. So do we? All right, this is how I think we can do it. No, be done. Well, it could be done. It's just going to be very complicated. See, my idea is that we go the other way, in the sense that we basically go and grab all the directories that have excuse me. We grab all the nested directories, and then we resolve it that way. But the problem with doing that, I don't know. I don't think that's going to work properly. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work properly. Yeah. What are we going to do here? The other thing is that the directory, like, I'm just trying to think, how are we looking at it? We basically look at it and we immediately know that it's a directory. So anything that is nested, where we can say as safely as a directory. So what we can do is, if there's a parent directory that contains that information, so maybe we go the other way and we step down the directory stack. So we essentially go here, look in here, does it have a directory? Yes. Does it have a thing? Is it a directory? Does it have a thing? Yes, it does. Okay, go and get those directories. They now correspond to the environment, that specific variable. Okay, go to the next item. That's the node name. Is it the last item in the list? Yes. Okay, go and get the files that's inside of that. They're the nodes. The thing with this one though is that the top level node, yeah, actually no, it's still required. So that then means that the problem with this though is that if we do it that way, okay, so no, let me rephrase that. With this one, because this is the top level item in the list, it means that you can't actually add anything new into it, because if we wanted to lock the user into a like essentially lock that, like lock a user and to be able to create one but not be able to like make changes, it's essentially only going to work for existing files, which means this won't work, because it's only going to work for existing files. So how do we overwrite that so that it can essentially allow files, essentially it ignores that and says, okay, that's a statically defined item. And that's maybe where we have to, within the node template file, so if we go back up here and we go node settings, you've got node name here, node.name. That's the name of the file. Interesting. So how do we how do we do this? Like, is it something that, because essentially, like, we can statically set that. Like what I was thinking you could do is say, like something along the lines like, percentage, static, and then that basically tells ScriptRunner that, hey, this is a static entry on the specific property that the user can type stuff into. And then that means that it would ignore it, and it's only going to need to resolve the role, the location. Well, it's interesting though, because the node name wasn't going to get resolved anyway. It was only going to resolve the web server location and baseline. But the problem is that, okay, I think I'm on the right track here. So I think, okay, it's kind of a two-step thing where we need to have something statically defined so that the user can add a file. The next thing that we need to do is have a web server. You got a location, web server, baseline. These will still have to be resolved to dynamically get the input required. So to do that, then we iterate through the resolved data, the top level datum. We got the role. What was it? Let me just quickly close everything. Save. Sorry, I'm just kind of cleaning up my windows so I can kind of keep track. We've got it's going to be where did I put it? There it is. So it's going to be the role, the location, and the baseline. You could actually do this. You could actually say node computer name, make that static. This is just from an architecture perspective. The node name would be like that, and then it would just be node dot computer name, and then that way you can then associate, like, you kind of keep the same structure, but you can kind of get rid of the you could eliminate any sort of difficulty there, and that makes it a lot more palatable to the user as well. Hey, this is the computer name that you want to put into, and so obviously the computer name goes to the role name. Then you can say, okay, what's its role, where is it, that kind of thing. But the interesting thing is that, like, environment. So, and this is interesting as well, is that, so like, for instance, with this DSC configuration, the node's sitting here, but there's no way, so the environment essentially describes, like, it's kind of the reverse. It's the files in the environment, and then basically that is then obviously dictates the environment, but it's actually got to be the reverse here, because you need to be able to say what environment it needs to be in for it to be able to, yeah. And so the description is node role in node environment. So you could like, so in this instance, okay, this is just this now to me is just datum configuration that would be statically set by the user, but we can get the environment um, based on, yeah. You could actually write it in here actually. Um, we could actually just write the code in here to do it, but I think that's future Michael problem. But for the moment, um, the thing is that like for instance, in this instance, environment is a directory, but we're not trying to resolve it. So we'd have to resolve everything that's in there. So that means that so computer name wouldn't resolve to anything. It actually resolves to node name. That's another problem. Is that how is the computer name going to be? Well, is that a problem? No, it's not a. Because the way that it would work is that, oh no, yeah, it would need to resolve it. It'd need to be able to resolve this and figure out where it needs to go. Okay, I think there's a fair bit of thought process that needs to go into this to kind of figure out. Like we could statically set it, that's fine. But I'm thinking along the lines of what happens if you're actually setting content dynamically. How is it going to work within the existing realms of Datum? Like the idea is that you kind of it works with Datum. It's not something that kind of sits outside it. So yeah, that's interesting. I think so. It's like environment file directory dot base name. It's like, do we have to parse the Datum configuration to figure out what's going where? Or should I take a step back, which actually I'm already doing, so the other idea, so what we could do is take a step back. So we're essentially trying to write the datum into this at the moment, which I don't think is the right idea. We could take a step back and basically have a, within our template here, this just describes where the file's going to go. So essentially it's the parameters that create the datum file, and then basically the parameters of where to put it. So the idea is that this would all be there. That's fine, and then we could have an additional item in there that basically says this is where the file, like this is the node path, because this essentially is a node. So we could say this is the node path, and it will be set in here based on the criteria that's set in here. So that's the environment, yeah, so it'd be like the environment, the anything along those lines that essentially is mandatory would have to be statically set. And then that can be resolved within datum information. And that way then essentially or or what you do it's a two-step process. And so what I mean by that is that instead of trying to automatically resolve it along these lines, so we've got node name environment. So if we go to settings here, let me just figure out how to create a quick object in YAML. Okay, so this would be the datum. This is datum configuration. And then what we can have in here is ScriptRunner configuration. We can say and then we can say like node path, or actually say we could say like node name, and these are static parameters, like you know, static kind of thing. Environment, and then we can set so the problem with this is that it's not dynamic. Essentially, you have to describe it, and it's like, okay, do we simplify datum or do we simplify it? Like, do we add complexity and insert it into ScriptRunner? The thing is that if a person's going to be managing datum, they could probably integrate this. Like, they could probably manage this. So the idea would be then is that you have your node name, your environment. So the admin would basically jump in here and make these changes. And then what you could do hypothetically is just put like a custom input here saying like something along the lines of like SR, you know, ScriptRunner replace, and then basically with the name. So this would be role, and then that would be like, you wouldn't need description. If say you're like, hey, I don't need to have description set because, you know, it's not mandatory. But like, for instance, like location, you know, things that basically pertain that are mandatory could maybe sit in here, like so. Like so, and then the idea is that you could run, the ScriptRunner would then basically go, these are the parameters that are getting presented to the user, and these and you could just put a value in there just saying like SR replace, and essentially it just associates this to that, and then it can write that into the YAML configuration with the configuration item. Well, it's the properties themselves into the YAML file. But the idea here is that then these would be statically, you know, presented to the user, and then you could resolve them. I think I'm gonna have to think about that. That's a really, really tough one. But I think by doing that, it means that we can resolve the information. Because essentially what would happen is when you go to add a new like an add file, it would basically call the node settings, and you could see this, and then want to go and map, retrieve the values from that, and then you'd be ready to go. So essentially these would be, hey, and the thing is that you could actually say like that while they're static, the script will essentially go and look within the datum configuration, and then it's able to resolve it based on that. So it knows that, for instance, so it'll go through each of those items. It's like node.environment. And then it's able to associate that to the environment. And that keeps this good. So this remains unchanged. This essentially what we're doing is we're essentially abstracting it and creating an interface off this, and then that basically sets the values in that, but keeping the existing code base, making sure that so essentially when we're deploying it, it stays the same. We're not basically statically setting stuff. So that keeps Datum happy, but it also keeps ScriptRunner happy as well. Okay, yeah, I think that's the better way to do it. I'm thinking that's what I'm kind of thinking of, is in terms of the best way to make this happen. Yeah. All right. Well, that was a very interesting thought experiment. A lot of digging around today. Yeah, so I think I'm going to keep cracking on with it throughout the week. I'll let you guys know what's happening when I make a change and get that all working. And then I'll basically update everyone next Saturday. What's next Saturday? The 11th. That is maybe not next Saturday. I might be streaming, I might not be streaming, I might stream Friday night. We will see these things. Yeah, so we will see what happens. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can see, I hope you guys can kind of see my logic. I'm kind of thinking things through, kind of mucking around, trying to make things happen, and kind of just see the way that I kind of approach things and problem solve them. Because it's always, I find that learning how to problem solve is the most important thing, especially in code, especially in automation and that kind of area, is to be able to kind of, look at how to pick apart something and then kind of figure out how to assemble it in a way that, it's going to work how you want it to work and work properly. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, yeah, I'll probably put this on YouTube when I get around to it. I'll just upload the last week's one this week. So and I'll continue to go, and I'll update you guys when I stream again on the latest progress and kind of take you guys through what's happening. And then from that, we'll just keep cracking on, and we'll be hopefully trying to get a really basic working POC, and maybe we'll mature it a little bit more, and then yeah, we'll have something really cool to show. So anyway, guys, see you next time. Bye.